So I'm Martin Townsend. I'm up out of Malta, Montana. I work with the Ranchers Stewardship Alliance running their conservation program. The segment we're talking about now is grasshoppers, how that impacts rangeland, ranch management, and economics. Up where I am, we have had, I think, 4 out of 5 of the last few years have been plague level grasshopper infestations. There's always been a long-standing rule of thumb that grasshoppers last 3 years, and we've sure proven that wrong. Been a huge challenge for ranchers to work with. They measure grasshopper damage. Basically, they count how many grasshoppers are in a square meter. The last 3 really bad grasshopper years, we've been 8 times the count of what is considered economic loss. We had a swarm of grasshoppers pick up, swirl around the air, and cross over the Missouri River. It showed up on radar and made national news of, like, it looked like a thunderstorm, but it was really just grasshoppers in the air. They don't just eat a little bit of grass at that level, they eat all the grass. So we had basically clear cuts of grasshoppers mowing down crops, grass. I think that's a huge management challenge from a rangeland perspective. Grasshoppers don't have a pancreas, so they can't digest sugar, so they aren't eating growing grass. They're waiting for grass basically to just finish growing, and that's when they eat it. So if you're a person that saves grass, stockpiles forage, plans ahead in your grazing, that's a great idea, but when you get there, the grasshoppers might have beaten you there. So we had issue after issue in our part of the world with people that had planned ahead of, I have a pasture I'm going to later, having that pasture have nothing in it, 100% loss to grasshoppers. Things that people have tried to manage around grasshoppers is there's insecticides that can be sprayed that can reduce them. Our problem, and a lot of problems at scale, is just the size. How many acres do you have to cover to actually make a dent in that grasshopper plague? Where we are, we're intermixed with a lot of public and private land, so we had to have agency buy-in to be able to spray large areas, and BLM was really good about it in our area, but the cost, the scale, the size, the plains, the timing, the weather, the wind, all the variables that can go wrong in spraying an insecticide, plus just the effectiveness of it, of we're 50, 60, 70, $300 an acre into spraying for grasshoppers and still not getting ahead of them. The hope on grasshoppers is they don't handle moisture and low oxygen well. So for them to basically die, they need bare ground to lay eggs, and they lay their eggs in bare ground. So like here, there's little pockets of bare ground is where they would lay grasshopper eggs. If they overwinter, if they're under snow and insulated, they do fine. But if it's an open winter and cold, they can freeze. If it's a wet spring and they don't get any oxygen, they drown. Or if they hatch and it's wet, they can get a fungus that kills them. So basically you have to have a wet spring is what it turns into to get rid of grasshoppers. And we had a cold spring, but not a super wet spring. So we have grasshoppers again. Not nearly as bad, but we definitely have them again. And the year that we had them the worst, we had maybe 4 days of snow cover. We had an open winter. So we had like 4 days of snow was all. And yeah, we had plague level, swarm level, radar level grasshoppers. So we had this horrible, huge grasshopper year, and like one of the main things we do with ranches is if they have like marginal crop ground, they seed it to grass for hay or forage or grazing. And grasshoppers love those. They graze them to the ground. So we're going out checking 100% loss on new grass seedings, or we're going out looking at like species specific loss. Like we have like CRP fields and they'd eat all the alfalfa out of it. Management of grasshoppers isn't really an option. It's mitigating the damage. Whether it's selling cows early, whether it's finding other forage, rotating, going somewhere else. As they're thinning down, we're starting to see, and you guys kind of said this for this ranch, areas where the grasshoppers are worse. So I know people always try to wait on forage, but I think we were finding you just go where the grasshoppers are and get that grass as fast as you can, because they're going to get it before you do. I think the biggest problem to especially like full damage level grasshoppers is they're knocking down all of your standing grass. So for the next year, you have basically no ration ability with old grass. So cows are eating nothing but new grass. So I think that can be a protein and an overload issue. So like performance is going down, gut speed is speeding up on cows. So they're not actually gaining as well on that grass. Knowing that and remembering to go kind of slower and letting some grass get out ahead of you is a huge thing to think about as you come out of a grasshopper year or anytime you're in a low litter, low cover situation. As far as habitat manipulation that can affect grasshopper management, again, they absolutely need bare ground. So like they're going to take some grass down, but if you're taking even more grass down, it's just opening up more places for them to lay eggs. So I think that's a concern to think about. Grasshopper lifespan is so weather dependent, it's almost not controllable though. Outside of that, we sat through a talk from entomologist that went through, I think, like 34 different species of grasshoppers and all of their slightly different preferences. And yeah, it's just a matter of which grasshopper is going to be the most destructive when, based on what weather. Another option to consider in any climate, weather, natural disaster type option is FSA, USDA farm programs. So there's forage loss production programs that can insure against losses in production. It depends on your county, your area, your long-term average, what your risk level is, what you want to spend on insurance. But those are things to consider in, especially when grasshopper years usually coincide. If it's one grasshopper year, really think about those programs, those insurances and those risk offsets for the coming years. And yeah, it's completely a personal preference of risk management, because some of those programs are super hard to trigger, some are super hard to pay out, some don't pay that well, some overpay. It's kind of a gamble. So it's learning how the program works enough to understand the possible benefits of it, and then the risk management assessment of it, of do I want to spend the money and time to be in this? Is it worth it? What do we do? And so I think in our part of the world, the last few years, managing for grasshoppers has really been an exercise in managing your beef marketing of at what point can you offload cows, at what point can you wean calves, at what point can you move, can you do something different, can you feed, can you supplement, what do you do to just deal with it? Because the worst part about grasshoppers, there's a mild positive of, they say basically they're taking grown high carbon grass and converting it into nitrogen and fertilizer by eating it. That's at least a feel good, because what they're doing is just eating all your grass. So for the first year, it's rough. If it's a second year of it, it's rough again, and we're on a third and fourth year. So the range management of it is kind of out of the window. It turns into a cattle management issue of how are we dealing with grasshoppers.